Hello everybody and welcome along to this week's edition of the Rebel White Ball. Not a huge amount happening, I think, on the political scene since we spoke to you last. I suppose the arguments between Mary Lou MacDonald and Micheál Martin, some people like that kind of entertainment, other people find it a bit annoying that these two adults are having a cut off each other. I think Micheál's timing was probably a little bit off this week again in terms of the announcements about the cut to the COVID payments, and that coincided with an announcement that they were hiring special advisors to 10 junior ministers. I'm not too sure what happened the other junior ministers, whether their portfolio requires special advisors or not. And of course, Mary Lou, she's in the opposition, and I suppose when you're on that side of the house, it's easier to have the ammunition ready. But anyway, that was the main story there. But of course, it was all about the COVID numbers, and goes without saying that they're rising alarmingly. And Dublin are not the only county now that are in trouble. We've Donegal who are moving to stage 3 probably before the night is out. And the story in Cork certainly doesn't make for good reading. And this week in the table of new cases, Cork were in second place in 3 days, down to 4th on one occasion, and back to 3rd today behind the aforementioned Dublin and Donegal. So I'd imagine it is only a matter of time before certain restrictions are going to be imposed here. And like as we said last week, this is not rocket science as to why this is happening. Like people aren't cutting down their I suppose the number of social contacts. I'd probably include myself in that if I was really truthful, but that's that story. And then I came across one or two people who reckon that the GAA are probably being ultra cautious, and that some matches that have gone off because of COVID-related issues probably shouldn't have gone off. And I know that they pointed the example of a soccer match that was played during the week. I think it was between Hull City and West Ham, and prior to that match, David Moyes, the manager of West Ham, and 2 of their players tested positive 70 minutes before kick-off, and the match went ahead. And they were following what they considered to be proper guidelines. So I don't know, is there something in that? Like we had a number of clubs, even early on, that had to take decisions to close down because of COVID-related matters. And I'm not saying for one moment that the person that's putting forward this theory that the GAA are being ultra cautious, but maybe there is something in there. And of course, we had some issues in with this PCR testing, that some people may have the infection but are not infectious. And I suppose there's a huge amount of work to be done around all that area of this whole testing situation, as to how it's not a case of how accurate it is. Some people would argue that is actually too accurate. But anyway, the numbers are going the wrong way, and whether to continue, I suppose, that further lockdowns would be inevitable, which obviously would be a bit of a pity because, things were going reasonably okay. Anyway, in terms of Gaelic games, Camogie and ladies football is going to be another massively busy weekend. And in terms of the 4 main hurling competitions, they have now reached semi-final stage, and the Cork County Championship, incredible championship. I've said this to you before, the best in the country, and trying to get it finished in such a tight schedule that were there any more postponements, I would fear for the future, or for the competition to be completed. Because remember, the Cork football and hurling teams will be taking part in. The footballers have to play 2 league matches before they play Kerry in the Munster Championship, and then the hurlers play Waterford in a big game as well. But anyway, hopefully that they will get them completed, and that the county finals, I think, that are down for the 11th of October will take place on that day. But back to what's happening this weekend in the Premier Senior Hurling. The 2 semi-finals take place, and they're both on Sunday. The Blackrock and UCC game, that goes ahead at 4 o'clock, and I suppose Blackrock will be the favourites there. UCC, I suppose the fact that they beat O'Kelly and beat the Pearshig, they have, it goes without saying, some very, very good players. All of them. Shane Conway is one of the outside guys in Kerry, but there are players from other counties involved as well. But the majority of the players are from Cork. And, you have a number of the players from Blarney and from Carrigaline. And what a win for Blarney last week. They're making people stand up and take notice. And they've qualified now. Blarney have, by the way, for for their Premier Intermediate Hurling final against Castlelyons, but we'll talk about that another time. But so UCC, they've never anything to lose. There's no doubt about that. Blackrock, though, have, and they so badly, I suppose, need to win a senior title, a Premier Senior title, if you like, and they've been impressive in all their matches, winning them. I won't say comprehensively, but impressively. So I think that I think they are the favourites, and I think they will win that match. The other one seems to be a bit easier to predict, and Glen Rovers shouldn't get over here and so on. And if they do, they tell me that it's the first time in 17 years that East Cork team won't be involved in the Cork Senior Hurling Championship final. We're going to have new champions as well, because of the fact that Imokeli, who were champions for the last 3 years, are no longer there. So I think Glen Rovers will be, favourites there, and they should win that one. So we'll be looking at kind of a north side, south side county final between Glen Rovers and Blackrock. But there's always the chances in there that we'll have a bit of a shock before the weekend is out. In the Scenery Hurling, which has proven to be an incredible championship, and the top 4 teams here are here in merit. One game on Saturday at 2 o'clock, and that's between Charleville and Kintork. And then on Sunday you have Newcestown playing Father O'Neill's. Charleville and Kintork, and you'd be tempted to say, look, Kintork are very much a dual club. To a degree, so Charleville, they're in the North Cork Junior Football Final. That game against that's against Buttevant. But I do think that they are probably slightly the better team. But Kintork, I mean, this side is a very talented side in both hurling and football. But if we have to pick one, we'd be going for Charleville in that one. The other one between Newcestown and Father O'Neill's, and I suppose Newcestown are really, they have some set of fixtures coming up over the next short period of time. On next Wednesday night at 7:30, they played that match that was called off last week in the quarter-final of the Premier Senior Football against St. Finbarrs. For Father O'Neill's, they've been firing all cylinders, and since they won the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship last year, they've with Declan Dalton and Billy Dunn up front, they're shooting astronomical scores. But this will be the first time they'll come up against a team like Newcestown. Now, I'm not saying that Newcestown are better than all the other teams that they have played. They've had a lot of good tests for their owners, but I think Newcestown will, if they get over them, they are certainly worthy county finalists, and I think they will. They're concentrating on hurling all the time, and that this is a really, really talented couple of players that have come through the club. So I kind of go for the East Cork side there, but again, Newcestown are going to make it difficult. They make it difficult for every team that they ever play, and they bring their own special spirit from that neck of the woods to the cause. There's a relegation battle as well in that competition. Most of the other relegation issues have been sorted out, and that's Kilworth and Killa. And I think that Kilworth would be the fancy team there. That game goes on Sunday in Ballino. In the intermediate hurling, the Premier Intermediate Hurling is sorted out. In the intermediate A hurling, you have Airog and SARS. That game goes on Sunday at 2 o'clock, and 2 hours later then we have Abollock and Kildare. I have a fancy here for the 2 mid-court teams. I think Airog are the best team in this competition. But like SARS now, just because they are a second team, as we said before, some of these second teams have players that have been playing Premier 1 and Premier 2 competitions at underage level. So all of these will be well able to hurl, but that Airog team, probably should be playing at a higher level of hurling now. They're very much a dual club as well. So that game goes on in Blarney. I think I fancied them there. Now, Abollock and Kildare, I have no great reason to say that Abollock should win it, because Kildare are a very good side, and they're evenly matched sides as well. But there's something about Abollock this year. There's a real spring in their step, and they've been winning matches and been very, very impressive. And that's the only reason, but I wouldn't be putting any sort of a large sum of money on it. In the Lower Intermediate Hurling Championship, then we have, these are 2 games, going to be 2 games here. One West Cork team involved in it, and that's Kilbrittain, and they play Castlemartyr, and that game goes on Sunday at 4 o'clock. I think the Castlemartyr, the 2 Lawtons in particular, and now Kilbrittain have been, that having the 2 Lawtons is going to be a big plus, and they're a good side. Kilbrittain have been making progress and have improved since the championship started, and their big win over Lgfa in the semi-final. But I think this will probably be maybe a step too far for them. In the other semi-final there, which goes on that game goes on at 3 o'clock, St. Catherine's versus Russell Rovers, and Russell Rovers are relatively new to this standard. So for that reason, I'd fancy the more experienced St. Catherine's sides. But look, that goes without saying they're going to be really, really good games. And then one game in the Premier scene of football, that's the game that was cancelled last week between Nemo Rangers and Ballincollig, and that game goes on Sunday night at 7:30. And look, I don't know how long we'll be doing these broadcasts, but and I would imagine that any time Nemo will be mentioned, that they'll be the favourites, and I would think that will be the case in this situation as well. Then we have in the divisions, and what a massive weekend in terms of divisional finals: 6 junior hurling finals and 1 junior football final out of the 8 divisions. In Avondhu, you're going to have the meeting of Glanmort and Kilshannig, and when they met last week, and Glanmort go under Harbour Rovers, I don't think there's very many harbours up around Glanmort, but any of them goes under Harbour Rovers in hurling. And last week when they met, I would have fancied Kilshannig. It was a great game, but Kilshannig did win it. And I suppose, look, before I move any further here, there was 2 players that were sustained serious injuries in that match, and that was Eric O'Donoghue and Éanna O'Hanlon. Eric from Glanmort and Éanna from Kilshannig, and obviously everybody associated with sport who wished him, a speedy recovery. It looked nasty early on. It was an injury that happened earlier on. Kilshannig have never won the Avondhu Junior Hurling Championship, as far as I know. Glanmort have, and I suppose Glanmort would be considered the same as last week. Kilshannig would have been considered favourites. I think that Glanmort, aka Harbour Rovers, would be kind of the side maybe to get over that one. But again, it should be a really good match, and that game goes on in Kildare on Saturday at 6 o'clock. In Muscovy, it's Ballinora versus Inniscarra, and basically this championship, what the past couple of years, especially now the Clodovher outfit, is his second teams and Ballinora to a greater degree. Ballinora have won it in the recent past, and I think that they're out of the football now. This is it's a big game for them, and it's in Inniscarra's second team on in Clodovher on Sunday at 3:30. So I think that Ballinora might be the slight fancy there. But again, like as I said about SARS earlier on, Inniscarra players that play in the second team would have a lot of experience of playing higher grade of hurling at underage level than the Ballinora players would have. In the Carrickdown division, this is Kinsale versus Shamrocks, and I saw where there was a situation where this game, if it ended level, it wasn't going to go to extra time, and this beggars belief, because this division is behind in certain competitions. They're junior football. In every other division, that after next Tuesday night they'll be down to finalists, whereas in the southeast, and I don't know why this is the case, that there are 5 teams left in their junior football championship, including Shamrocks. So I think that maybe a directive was issued during the week that all these championship matches must end on the day, and whereas nobody wants any match going to penalties, certainly extra time should be played. And why this hasn't been the case, I honestly don't understand. And you can look around and you can see matches all over the country with the Tyrone County football final went to penalties, even the Offaly senior football semi-final. And don't be surprised if some of the matches in Cork this weekend, it didn't happen last weekend, would go to extra time and penalties. So these 2 teams, Shamrocks and Kinsale, they're relatively new in terms of being in the final, because over the past number of years, this competition has been, I suppose, dominated by second teams. It's a while since either of them won at. Shamrocks go back to 2007 and 2005, I think it was, and Kinsale in 2007. They've met earlier on, and Shamrocks, I think, won on that occasion. It should be a close game, but I think maybe Kinsale, they played a higher level of football. That little bit of experience might get them over the line. But I'd be hoping that these divisions have a huge role to play in the Cork GAA landscape. And I think that's recognised. And, there's some people like this to peddle this narrative that the county board like to get rid of the divisions and this kind of stuff. But there's responsibility involved as well. I would say that if divisions want to be taken seriously, they have to treat their club seriously. And I think it would be a right disaster if any division had to nominate for the Cork Junior Football or Junior Hurling Championship this year, particularly when it's only the winners. And so for that reason, it's great to see all the other divisions are up to speed from what I can gather. And as I said, they're down to final stages. But I don't know why the Carrickdown division can't get their act together, if you like. And, maybe there are some reasons for it that I don't understand. But sure, what reasons should be different to their division than the other ones? But anyway, that's that. In the Shandoon division, it's Passage who are going to be in the final against Brian Dillon's. Brian Dillon's will be the favourites, but Passage won their first junior football final in a long number of years last Sunday in the city, and they've nothing to lose here, if you like. Brian Dillon's are a club that have been a tad unlucky in terms of when they won the division, the city division, not winning a county championship. That game goes on in Ballinlough at 4 o'clock, and I'd be going there for the Brian Dillon's team. In Duhallow, you're going to have another great final. Drumtariff and Kilbreen, and Drumtariff are the younger of the sides. They won their first championship, I think, in 2018. Was that their maiden championship? And here they are in the final again, and they have all those players. Normally, when you talk about Drumtariff to maybe an older generation, they talk about the great football teams they had, but huge work has gone in on underage level in hurling, and that's why they are a successful hurling side. But strangely and ironically enough, they won a county junior football there, which against the Head a couple of years ago, which surprised a lot of people. They're great footballers as well. And Kilbreen, who, I think they won their first championship way back in, was it 78 or something? They've won 11 championships since. But they have been a little disappointing over the past couple of years, losing out at the business end. So they're going to be really hell-bent on getting back to where they consider their rightful positions to be. But I would imagine that it's 78 was, by the way, the first time they won it. I'd fancy Drumtariff there. In the Southwest Division, last weekend, there was nearly 2 surprises. Clonakilty did eventually get over the Dawneys, and for that reason, they will be favourites to win. They have some very good hurlers. They're out of the football now. They were lucky, though, to get over it, and that they will be playing St. Mary's. Now, St. Mary's in West Cork Junior Hurling Final. I actually had to check to know when was the last time they were there, and I think it was back in 1987 when they were beaten by Barry Rowe, but they'd be considered more of a football division, a team, if you like, and prior to that was back in 1979 when Kilbrittain beat them. But they're in the final, and if they were to win it, it would be one of the shocks and the sporting upsets in West Cork. They've come from absolutely nowhere, and I hope I'm not wronging anybody with that. But look, they're there, and they're to be involved in the final, I think, is a huge thing for them. But I certainly wouldn't be some achievement if they were to win their first ever West Cork Junior Hurling Final. The Flyer 9 trophy is what they're playing for there, and were it to go back to the twin villages of Balliny and Inniskey, and well, that's what sporting stories are made of, and that certainly would be one of the sporting highlights of the West Cork landscape, if you like. So yeah, they're the 6 hurling ones, and the football one then that we're going to have is the East Cork Junior Football Final. Now, I know that the world media won't be tuned in here, but it is a final, and the Carricktool and Middleton, obviously the Slither is their sport. But if you look at the history books, there's been some very good footballers come out of both clubs. I think that maybe Carricktool would be the slight favourites there. I'm not saying that out of any great conviction or anything like that. I think they're playing, that game goes on Sunday, and that's that'd be the second final that would be completed at the third final, that would be completed in the divisions at football level. It's a big, big weekend for the Camogie fraternity, and it's the senior final between Enniscarra and Corsi Rovers. They're contrasting fortunes, if you like, in that I think this is their 4th final in a row in Escara, and they took over from the great Milford team, and they have been great ambassadors for they are great ambassadors for Camogie, and they have some outstanding players, none more so than Arena Buckley, and you've Rosie McCarthy, Claudia Keane, and Niamh Dilworth, to name just a few of them. And they were a bit disappointed last year to lose the county final to a very talented Sarsides, but they're back in the final this year. Great wins over Glen Rovers and St. Finbarrs, and they're playing Corsie Rovers. Now, Corsies, have been making great strides. They got to their first final 2 years ago. They were heavily beaten on that occasion by Inniscarra, from what I can remember. But I think they're an improved side, and they're younger players like Fiona Keating and Saoirse McCarthy. They're 2 players that have obviously are more experienced than Linda Collins and Aisling Maloney. They have I think they're a more balanced side this year. And by the way, the players I name, I've just picked a few there. There's other fabulous players that are playing for both teams as well. If, of course, it Rovers to win it, for Fiona Keating to be some special memory, because she'd be definitely the only player that would have a top club level hurling Camogie medal in Cork and ladies football, because she was part of the West Cork team that won their first ever title a couple of weeks ago. And what a talented young player. But anyway, it's not about one player or anything like that. So it's on at 3 o'clock. Okay, Inniscarra would be the favourites, but I think that Corsie Rovers, they're a more mature side. I think it's going to be a great final. And finally, we have the I suppose the last of the main finals in the ladies football, and it is the Junior E Championship final. And whereas maybe some of the senior A grade or the senior grade is a little bit down to 2 teams. There's some great teams playing in the other competitions, and we've had great finals. This one is going to be, another real thriller. It's going to be between 2 mid-court teams. Nafion Bora are the team made up of Ballingeary and Inchigeelagh, and this would be like Celtic and Rangers putting out a team together. But when it comes to the ladies, they're a unified parish. And I saw a photograph of their team, and this is Junior E, and the number of players they have and the interest they have in ladies football in that neck of the woods. Macroom, on the other hand, would probably be, and like their neighbours obviously, and some of them have gone to school together. This will be a great game. It is on in Carrigadrohid and Sunday at 3 o'clock, and I think Eric O'Shea and Aoife Toomey would be the main players with Macroom, whereas Rena Vukle and Lisa McSweeney would be just 2 of them, many talented players. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the outcomes of all of those matches. So, dear friends, that's about it for this week, and I hope you enjoyed some of it, and that maybe we pointed you in the right direction of who's going to win some of those matches. So till the next time, take care.